I feel like we've been spoiled somewhat in terms of the price of media. I remember, 10, 15 years ago, probably closer to, about 10 years ago. I remember being very excited at getting a copy of Deus Ex Human Revolution with all the DLC for £15. £15! And for me, that was not very much money for a whole video game plus all the stuff. It wasn't that long after it had been released either, so I was like, whoa, this is cheap. I also remember being very excited at getting Magicka for £8. £8! What? And this was before I discovered the Humble Bundle and Indie Royale, as it was back then, and all the other bundles that there were. There's not very many these days, but there used to be tons of them. And they'd sell you, 8 games for a couple of quid? Suddenly, games became worthless, particularly indie games. And it's the same with films, and particularly with books. Who the heck among you is going to pay 15 quid for a book? I can't think the last time I paid more than £3 for a book, maybe a fiver. Well, actually, that's not true. I've paid a lot of money for books. But they've been the sort of books that are limited edition, or the sort of books that you wouldn't often see. It's very rare that I'll just go into a shop and buy a new novel for £15. It has to be a book that either I really, really like already and want a proper nice copy of, or a book that I know that I would really be interested in. And more often than not, I find myself buying non-fiction books for more money. But I can't fathom. I can fathom it, but it's odd to consider the fact that £15 is a normal price for a novel. Novels that take years to write, might I add. And similarly, I would have a very hard time biting the £60 bullet for a new video game, or even more, despite the fact that that's really what they're worth, because you're getting a lot out of them. And hour for hour and pound for pound, 60 quid for a 100+ hour experience, well, it's less than 50p an hour sometimes. And yet, there's still a lot of people who will pay new prices for new games because that's the norm. But for a lot of us, myself included, paying more than a fiver for a game is a difficult ask at times. Well, more than a tenner, let's say. More than a tenner for a video game, it is a bit of a difficult ask. And, well, we can probably blame the many bundles there have been, but I think it started sooner than that. I think it started with the low prices of second-hand games and films. You need to take into account places like That's Entertainment and CEX and charity shops probably for knocking out DVDs and stuff for pennies. You go into there's an Oxfam nearish by where I live. You can get 4 DVDs for £1. I think they include Blu-rays in that as well. It's and some of them aren't even that old, but it's interesting. When I go into HMV now, I'm thinking, could I spend £6 on a new Blu-ray? Or £8 probably? Or could I go into CEX, or even onto Music Magpie, or another eBay shop? Could probably get it for £2. Case in point, I've just bought 4 films for £5, all Blu-rays, all not relatively recent, but not massively old either. It's interesting. I do think the answer is that we're all used to bundles and second-hand media, and probably the fact that when inflation is kind of invisible. So going back to the £60 games, well, there were £60 back in the 90s, and there's still £60 now, but 60 quid in the 90s is more like £100 now, but games haven't gone up in price. Films, well, I'm not really sure how much films were in the 90s, but probably 15, 20 quid. They're still 15, 20 quid now, new. And books, probably the same sort of deal. In fact, probably more expensive in the 90s. So, things have just got cheaper over time, simply because the value of money has gone up. So, but the actual price point has not for luxury items like that. But it's also because we're probably looking at the Humble Bundles and stuff like that. Even the Humble Bundles are much more expensive now, but you look at the old ones and like they'd give you 10 games for no money at all. It's difficult to pinpoint where the issue lies, and that's not really the point of this vlog. It was just an observation more than anything. And I don't think I've explained it very well, but that's the nature of the vlogs. Sometimes it's not going to be great, but no matter. I would love to hear your opinions on this phenomenon. Have you come across it? Would you pay £60 for a new game? Would you pay £15 for a new book or a new film? Do let me know. Anyway, that's enough rambling from me. Thank you all for watching, and I'll see you all tomorrow.